Chapter 321. Glancing at Olivia's expression, Ethan continued, "Do you know about your mother's illness?" "Yes, but I don't intend on donating my bone marrow to her." "Wise choice. Personally, I also don't want you to get involved with her anymore." For the past few days, the Carltons put in a lot of effort into finding the perfect bone marrow, but they failed to do so. "You're the only one they haven't tested?" Olivia asked. "So you think the Carltons won't let me go?" "They definitely won't. I know Chris' personality too well. You might be upset to hear this, but he truly loves your mother. He will stop at nothing if it means saving your mother." Ethan placed his hands on Olivia's shoulders while speaking earnestly. "Liv, there may be a lot of misunderstandings between us. I've hurt you before, but I sincerely want to protect you now. I'll send more men to look for your father. Just stay here and rest for a while, okay? I'll come back for you when I've settled everything." The sounds of a helicopter could be heard coming from the lawn outside. It sounded urgent. Olivia gazed at him. "I understand." Ethan placed a hand behind her head, planting a kiss on her forehead. "Liv, give me some time. I'll tell you everything in due time. I promise that we'll be together like how we were in the beginning. I will give you everything you want." For a moment, Olivia didn't know what to say to annoy him. Ethan took out 2 rings from his pocket. They were his and Olivia's wedding rings. He held Olivia's hand before slipping one of the wedding rings onto her finger. The earnest look in his eyes was the same as it had been in the past. Olivia couldn't understand why a man like Ethan could have a change of heart. But Connor's existence was a symbol of his disloyalty. When the ring slid onto Olivia's thin finger, it hung loosely at the base. She had lost a lot of weight, and her fingers had gotten much slimmer as well. Olivia chuckled. "Look, after getting divorced, even the wedding ring doesn't fit me anymore." The look in Ethan's eyes flickered. He didn't get mad. Instead, he carefully took off the ring. "Liv, rings can be adjusted. Similarly, people can repent after making mistakes. To err is human, after all." He put the ring away. "I'll put it on for you when we meet next time." Ethan kissed the back of her hand. "My precious Mrs. Miller." Urgent voices sounded outside. Ethan looked longing at Olivia. "Liv, I have to go." In the past, whenever he had to leave, even if it was just for work, Olivia would throw a tantrum in his arms. Then, she would see him off at the door, watching him leave until he was gone. But now, she only nodded. Instead, Ethan was the one reluctant to leave. Standing at the door, he looked quietly at Olivia. There was a displeased look in his eyes. "Aren't you seeing me off?" Olivia placed the book on the bedside table before saying lightly, "All good things must come to an end. Seeing you off will only increase the longing. It won't solve anything." Ethan didn't say a word. He left with a cold look on his face. Soon, Olivia heard the sounds of the helicopter taking off. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, watching as the red dot grew smaller in the sky. She no longer felt longing for him. Instead, she felt more freedom after he left. There was phone reception on the island, so Olivia could make phone calls. But the internet was blocked, so she couldn't go online. She had asked about it beforehand. Even if there was internet here, this was a deserted island. It wasn't even shown on the map. So, she had no idea where this place was. Even if Olivia were to call someone, she could only tell them that she was on an island. She didn't know anything else. The second day after Ethan left, Olivia called Everly to assure the latter that she was fine. Right after that, she received a call from an unfamiliar number. "Olivia, is that you?" The caller's voice was stern and mature. It was Chris. Chapter 322. Chris reached out for Olivia just as Ethan had expected. Back when Olivia was about to die, the majority of the Carltons chose to let Marina live instead of her. Chris was the only one who didn't make a decision. Hence, Olivia didn't hang up. She said in a distanced and polite way, "Yes, it's me. I knew it. You're still alive." Chris sounded very excited. Fortunately, Olivia had asked someone to deliver the Teddy phone watch. It was how they figured out that she was still alive. Chris only dialed her number to see if it would work. He didn't expect the call to go through. "Mr. Carlton, I'm alive, but it doesn't mean that I will donate the bone marrow to your wife." Before he could speak, Olivia declined his reason for calling. "Olivia, I want to talk with you." "I'm afraid that's not possible." Olivia lay on the reclining chair. She held a coconut in her hands, enjoying the comforting sea breeze. It felt like a warm hand caressing her cheek. She thought that even the sea breeze was gentler than her mother's own touch. "Olivia, I know you don't like Marina and the Carltons. As an elder, it's not appropriate for me to comment on the younger generation." Olivia interrupted, "If it's not appropriate, then don't do it. I don't need your comments or apologies. Olivia, I know that nothing I say can ease the resentment you've been feeling. I just want to tell you that your mother is in a dire state. It wasn't that she refused to come back to Arlandia to see you. It's because of my special status that she couldn't come back. Your mother truly misses you." Olivia didn't say a word. She couldn't be bothered to argue with him about Chloe missing her. His lies were too blatant. Even if Chloe couldn't go back to Arlandia, she could at least make a call. Back then, Chloe had just left when Olivia pestered Jeff for Chloe's number overseas. She kept wondering if Chloe was used to life overseas. Life in other countries was quite different from Arlandia, after all. Chloe had always been a picky woman, so Olivia was worried that she couldn't get used to it. When the call went through, Olivia didn't even have a chance to talk. When Chloe heard Jeff's voice, she said, "It's over between us. I have a new family now, so don't call me anymore. I don't want him to misunderstand our relationship. That's all. I'm busy." Olivia was stunned when she heard that. She was worried for Chloe for days, but Chloe never even asked about Olivia. Instead, Chloe was worried that Jeff would pester her. After all, if Jeff truly wanted to pester Chloe, he wouldn't have let her leave just like that. In all those years, Olivia could see that Jeff loved Chloe to bits. But no matter how much he tried, he couldn't get Chloe to warm up to him. In the end, when Chloe left, she didn't even remember a nice thing he did for her. Instead, she feared that he would become a burden. Olivia found it pathetic. How could her mom be someone like this? As time passed, her love for her mother was able to trump the sadness she felt from this incident. Back then, she would stand guard near the phone, fearing that she might miss a call from her mother. When she was in her teens, other families had already stopped using landlines. But she kept their landline around. She thought that Chloe simply didn't want to talk to Jeff. But she was different. She was her mother's daughter, so surely her mother would ask about her. As soon as she got off school, she would keep watch on the phone. She would also keep an eye on the extension line when she went to sleep at night. There was a time zone difference to consider. Olivia couldn't sleep too soundly in case she missed a call. But after giving hundreds of excuses, she still hadn't received a call from Chloe. Now that Olivia had grown up, she finally understood the truth. Chloe was relishing the happiness of getting back together with her old lover. Chloe was probably eagerly preparing for her new life with Chris. She wouldn't remember that Olivia even existed after all. Olivia was simply the daughter Chloe didn't love. It wasn't that Chloe was playing favorites. Olivia was simply never loved. Chris spoke for a long while, and Olivia stayed silent the whole time. When he had finally stopped talking, Olivia spoke up. "Are you tired from all the talking? Why don't you drink some water before you continue?" Chapter 323. Chris spoke animatedly, and he was wholly sincere about it. He didn't fake anything, and he even spoke as if he were there in person. But in the end, when Olivia provided him with such a response, he didn't know how to react. He still had many things to say, but now, they were stuck in his throat. "Olivia, I'm saying all this sincerely. I'm not faking anything. I know. That's why I didn't hang up." Chris was probably the only person with integrity in the Carlton family. Olivia didn't mock him. Instead, she politely listened to everything he had to say. "Olivia, I forgot to tell you this. Donating bone marrow won't affect a healthy person. They will recover in about 10 days. It's not the same as donating kidneys, which can bring irreversible harm." Olivia replied, "Mr. Carlton, I learned medicine before. I understand everything you talked about. Then, I don't want to donate it. Chris sighed. You won't be doing it for free. Just name your price. I can pay you no matter how much you ask for. Some things can't be bought with money, like a mother's love for example. Mr. Carlton, you're a good man. That's why I'm having this conversation with you patiently right now. I'm no longer Miss Parker's daughter the moment she chooses to let me die. Chris argued, Olivia, blood ties can never be cut off. In the past, she could cut it off if she wanted to. Now the same applies to me. I have something to deal with, so I'm hanging up now. Beeps sounded on Chris' end of the line. When he dialed the number again, Olivia's phone was already turned off. Olivia lay lazily under the umbrella, allowing the sea breeze to caress her face. The temperature here was much higher than in Aldenvine. It must be somewhere close to the equator. Originally, she wanted to figure out the coordinates based on the natural vegetation. But Ethan had spent a lot of money to remake this island over the past few years. It was all man-made at this point. There were only some commonly seen moss and natural vegetation with common characteristics. She couldn't find any clues about where she was. The cage was simply too luxurious. Ethan had realized his ambitious project. Miss Fordham, the afternoon tea is ready. Will you be dining here, or would you like to go somewhere else? Right here, please. Understood. Please wait while I set everything up for you. The afternoon tea consisted of juice and snacks from various countries. The service Olivia enjoyed here was equivalent to those in 7-star hotels. At first, Olivia wanted to return to Aldenvine as soon as possible. This morning, she had just contacted Colin. Everything was well with Jeff's ship. He would travel another few days on the sea before he arrived at his island. Jeff's vital signs were stable. Olivia was reassured when she heard that. As long as Jeff was in one piece, Olivia wouldn't be threatened by anything. The mastermind must be mad now that Olivia couldn't be found anywhere. Also, if Olivia were to go back right now, the Carltons would probably try to get her to donate her bone marrow. But here, Olivia could eat and drink as she liked. She was also feeling very relaxed. After thinking things through, she stopped trying. She would let Ethan deal with the incidents in Aldenvine. Since she couldn't escape, she would enjoy her stay here. When she temporarily let go of her burdens, Olivia realized that life had become much easier. She finally experienced the wonderful feeling of hope and optimism. Here, she wouldn't have alarms waking her up. She wouldn't have to fear getting kidnapped, and she didn't have to be wary of anybody. She would explore the island with Snowball every day. Her days were simple and happy. It was just like the island she had been on some time ago. There weren't many locals here, but it was much better than the island back then. There was also a natural hot spring on the island. She could lean against the edge of the pool as she soaked in the clean hot spring. She could enjoy the fluttering cherry petals as well. Olivia even forgot that she was plagued by a serious illness. She ate and slept well here. Chapter 324. Olivia plumped up rather quickly. She looked much better now. Even her stomach hadn't hurt for days. Time seemed to have paused on this island. There were many servants on the island. There were also more than 10 chefs who made meals for her every day. There were 20 gardeners and several dozen servants who did odd jobs and housekeeping. Heck, there was even a doctor here. Many of them were old servants from the old and new Miller residences. Ethan could pamper her very well if he wanted to. To ease her loneliness, the old servants took care of her as if she were their own family. In reality, she wasn't bored on the island at all. Chickens, ducks, and geese were reared here. Olivia had also been busying herself with helping rabbits give birth. She would also collect eggs from the coop and shear the young lambs. She had once decided to roast one of the lambs. But then, the lamb kept bleeding and following her. Hence, Olivia gave up her desire to eat a whole roasted lamb. Every day, the island was brimming with life because of the animals. Even the pigs enjoyed their time here. They freely ran everywhere, and they also rolled around on the mountainside. Sometimes, Olivia would bring a basket with her to the garden to harvest vegetables. She would also go to the orchard to pick some fruits. It was a tropical area, so mangoes, pineapples, and bananas grew well here. Ethan, who spent money excessively, even built a temperature-controlled produce section here. It was entirely possible to live off the island itself. Ethan also built a small house of books for her. There were various books inside, from medical texts to local and international novels. Even the contemporary classics were included. The small cabin next to it was an atelier. It was filled with art supplies. The next cabin was a dance room and a piano room. Ethan had considered almost everything. On this island, Olivia lived her life to the fullest. Unlike Olivia's peaceful life, Aldenvine was in complete chaos. Firstly, the Carltons asked many people to help, but none of them had bone marrows that matched Chloe's. They were beginning to suspect that Chloe simply wasn't fated to be saved. Chloe's condition grew worse. Chris constantly took care of her, resulting in him losing some weight as well. Marina would come over to visit Chloe sometimes. But the most she did was play some games and watch videos on the side. She didn't even peel an apple for her mother. Those visits were just for show. Marina had been like this all these years. Chloe thought that she had gotten used to it. Still, she felt an unspeakable bitterness and sorrow in her heart. From the day she joined the Carltons, she tried her best to take care of Marina. She loved Marina as if the girl was her biological daughter. But in the end, Chloe put in all those efforts for naught. Marina didn't appreciate her at all. "Marina, can you pour a glass of water for me? I'm feeling a little thirsty." Chloe made a simple request. The glass was right next to Marina. Frowning, Marina hard and annoyed look on her face. She never once took her eyes off her phone screen. How troublesome. Just ask the caregiver to pour it out for you. The caregiver is getting medicine for me. Then wait for her. I'm on a roll here. Chloe's heart ached. At that moment, she suddenly thought of Olivia. She had been ignoring Olivia since she was young. Back then, when Olivia was around 5 years old, Chloe had a high fever. Olivia cried until her eyes turned red. She constantly stayed by Chloe's bed. Olivia would ask Chloe if she wanted water or some soup. She even mimicked the adults and covered Chloe with a blanket. With a face full of concern, Olivia asked, "Mom, is it uncomfortable for you? When I grow up, I'll be a doctor. Then, you won't have to get sick ever again." At that thought, Chloe couldn't help the tears rolling down her cheeks. Chapter 325. Back then, Chloe thought that Olivia was just rambling nonsense. But it turned out that Olivia had enrolled in a medical school for real. Chloe didn't think much about it. She only thought that it was just some child's ranting. It was like how children talked about becoming teachers, astronauts, and firefighters. Now, when Chloe recalled Olivia's earnest little face, her heart ached as if it had been pierced. Lying on the bed, Chloe couldn't help but recall the many memories she had tossed away. She had this child by accident. From her pregnancy until childbirth, she never had any expectations of this child. Olivia didn't look like her or Jeff. So, Chloe felt even more distant from her. After Chloe had given birth, Jeff feared that it would disturb her rest, so he sent Olivia to a childcare center. Olivia had never drunk a drop of Chloe's breast milk. She was raised on baby formula. Fortunately, Olivia had been a healthy child. She rarely got sick when she was young. But Chloe kept having illnesses big and small because of her depression. Her thoughts were completely occupied by her old lover. She never bothered to remember when Olivia began teething. She didn't even remember when Olivia started calling her Mom. Even when Olivia learned to walk, Chloe's first reaction wasn't to pick Olivia up the moment she tottered up to her leg. Instead, she pushed the child away. She treated the child coldly and cruelly, but Olivia kept sticking to her since young. "Mom, I want to eat the teddy cookies you make. Mom, I'll cook for you when I grow up. Mom, our school is holding a family sports day. Are you coming? Mom, don't be sad. You'll recover soon. When I've grown up and become a doctor, you won't be sick anym. Mom, have some water. The doctor said that drinking warm water will help you recover faster. Here, drink it. I'll pour some more when you're done. Mom, I love you so much, but why won't you love me? Oh, I know, my love must not be strong enough, so that's why you don't like me. I'll become an outstanding person so that you'll be proud of me every day. Mom, you promised to bring me to the amusement park. Don't leave me." Olivia's tears rolled uncontrollably down her cheeks. She even remembered the warmth of the tiny hand placed on her forehead and the worried eyes looking at her. Wiping her tears, Chloe removed the blanket and got off the bed. She walked slowly toward the table. She had just touched the glass when darkness blotted out her vision. With a crash, she fell to the floor along with the glass. The sudden noise startled Marina. Marina frowned as she looked at Chloe. "What are you doing this time? I'm warning you, I'm not a fool like Dad. I won't believe women like you. Hurry and get up. I won't be fooled by people playing the victim." Chloe spent more than 10 years treating Marina with sincerity and love. But Marina repaid her with insults instead. Chloe opened her mouth to explain. "I'm not pretending. I don't have the strength. Help me up, please." "You don't have strength. Ha, you looked quite lively when you seduced my dad back then." Marina watched her phone screen turn black. Then, she tossed her phone away and stood up. Crossing her arms, she looked coldly at Chloe. "There are no outsiders here, so why are you pretending? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You're a whore, so it's no wonder that your daughter is a wench too." Chloe had stopped sobbing earlier, but now, the tears began falling again. As if her insults weren't enough, Marina even kicked Chloe. "Who are you crying for? Just get up already." Chapter 326. After kicking Chloe a few times, Marina still wasn't satisfied. So, she started hurling insults at Chloe. She was venting all the dissatisfaction she felt toward Chloe and Olivia. Chloe's face turned paler. Beads of sweat also appeared on her forehead. She didn't have the energy to argue anymore, so she could only hang her head. Marina kicked at Chloe with her toes. "Hey, quit pretending you're dead." Just then, the door opened. Chris had gone home to wash up and change his clothes, then rushed back as soon as he could. He happened to witness the scene. "What are you doing?" Chris roared like a furious lion. Marina was stunned at the spot. She said, "Dad, she fell on purpose. She just wants you to feel bad for her. Don't be tricked by her. She's..." Before she could finish speaking, Chris had helped Chloe up. When Chloe raised her head, blood streamed out of her nose. In an instant, her clothes were soaked with blood. Marina was startled as well. She thought that Chloe was playing tricks, like how Marina often did. When she saw the large puddle of blood, she knew that she was in trouble. Chris shouted at her, "Get the doctor." It was then that Marina came to her senses. She pressed the bell. The doctor and nurses rushed in for the emergency medical treatment. Looking at the dying woman, Marina didn't feel much emotion. But she knew that if Chloe died, she would have to shoulder the blame. Her dad wouldn't let her off the hook. In other words, Chloe could die, but she mustn't die at Marina's hand. "Dad, listen to me. I swear I didn't do anything." Chris slapped Marina across the face heavily. "If something happens to her, I won't forgive you. Get out." He had seen how nice Chloe was to Marina all these years. Even though Chloe didn't give birth to Marina, she pampered Marina unconditionally. No matter what Chloe had done for her, Marina remained distant and indifferent. She didn't respect Chloe at all. Now that Chloe was gravely ill, Marina even treated her with cruelty. Marina cradled her cheek. "Did you just slap me? How dare you slap me because of that wench? She's your stepmother, Marina. She may not be your real mother, but she tries so hard to be one. She took care of you when you were sick. She barely slept a wink back then, and her eyes even became bloodshot because of you. Is this how you repay her?" With tears streaming down her face, Marina retorted coldly, "You want me to repay her? Have I ever asked her to do those things? She's not my biological mother anyway. She pretended to treat me nicely so that she could secure her position in the Carlton family. She only wanted you guys to accept her. She's a shameless wench." Chris slapped Marina again. "Look at you. I don't care if you're not an outstanding person in life, but you have to at least be kind. You keep spouting profanities, not to mention you've been nothing but disrespectful to Chloe. I don't remember raising you like this." At that moment, Marina was pissed. She shouted viciously at Chris, "Well, I hate her. If you didn't miss her so much, my mom wouldn't have died from heartbreak at such a young age. I don't care if she's sincere or faking it, I just can't forget about my mom's death." That wench has lived way longer than my mom, so it should be enough already. Chris shouted, "You!" Marina raised her head defiantly. "Go on, hit me. Kill me right now, I dare you." Chris was so mad that he clutched his chest. "Get out, I don't want to see you again." Marina dashed out of the door. She went to Miller Group with red-rimmed eyes and waited for Ethan in the office. Ethan had just come back from his meeting when Marina walked up to him. "Ethan." Ethan frowned deeply the moment he saw her. He asked in a low voice, "What are you doing here? If there's anything you want to buy, just let Brent know about it. I'm busy." Chapter 327. Marina wanted to rant very badly, but she was forced to hold her tongue. She had no idea since when Ethan refused to even utter a word to her. "Ethan, didn't you see my face?" It was only then that Ethan looked up. He saw her red cheeks sporting clear handprints. "Who hit you?" "My dad." "Then I can't do anything about it." Upon returning to his seat, Ethan flipped open a folder. He couldn't possibly ask Chris to take responsibility, after all. His connections to the Carltons aside, Ethan respected Chris as a person. Seeing his nonchalance, Marina hastily ran toward him. "If Olivia got hurt, would you be this cold to her too?" Ethan wanted to say that Marina wasn't worthy enough to be compared to Clivia. But when he thought about the deceased Kurt, he chose not to say it. He simply said, "I'll ask Kelvin to send you to the hospital. I am your fiancé." Marina was upset with Ethan's half-hearted attitude. In the past, he was never intimate with her, but at least he was gentlemanly and respected her. But now, he didn't even respect her at all. He freely expressed his disgust toward her. "You didn't come to the engagement ceremony," Ethan reminded her. "What, are you running away from your responsibilities? Don't forget, you promised Kurt that you will protect us for life. If it weren't for Kurt, you would have died by now." Marina had said the same thing countless times. She wanted the Milia Stelli, but Ethan said she couldn't have it. So, she brought up Kurt's death to threaten him. She wanted Collington Cove as well. It was a surprise prepared for Olivia. But in the end, Marina used it to force Ethan to give up on that plan. Ethan had spent years building that hospital. The tendering, filing, land acquisition, and building stages took a lot of effort. He wanted to give it to Olivia as a present after she had given birth. He knew that Olivia was a kind person. He even established a charity fund for the people who couldn't afford to pay their medical bills. He could already imagine how happy Olivia would be when she knew about it. But when Marina heard of this, she kept pestering him for shares of the hospital. She even changed the name of the hospital. For some time, because of what happened to Leia, he had hatred toward Olivia as well. Still, his love for her never changed. His remorse toward Kurt had turned into Marina's past to get everything she wanted. Of course, Ethan kept putting up with her ridiculous requests. In the end, his actions only served to hurt Olivia deeply. Ethan slapped the folder shut, which startled Marina. Why are you looking at me like that? What I said isn't wrong. He died because he wanted to protect you. Enough." A cold air emanated from Ethan, his voice becoming terrifyingly low. He rose to his feet before slamming his hands onto the desk, his figure towering over Marina's by a head. "Do you treat Kurt's death as your pass to get everything you want?" The oppressive feeling coming from Ethan loomed over Marina. Startled by his expression, Marina trembled. Yes, he died to save me, and I am very grateful to him. I promised him that I would take good care of you guys. You said that you wanted to get married to me, and I agreed. I gave you everything you wanted. There's the birthday banquet for Olivia and the recent engagement ceremony. When have I complained about you? Marina, I've spent a lot of money and effort on you, but were you ever sad about Kurt's death? Marina was upset when she heard that. I gave birth to his child. Why wouldn't I be saddened by his death? Ethan looked down at her with a judging gaze. She lowered her head guiltily. But then, Ethan revealed a long-hidden secret. No one knows where your child came from. But I do. Chapter 328. Ethan and Kurt were cousins, and they looked alike. Kurt had been in love with Marina since they were young, but Ethan was the one Marina liked. So they had been in a love triangle for quite some time. During one of Marina's birthday parties, Kurt attended, but Ethan didn't. Marina got drunk and thought Kurt was Ethan. She got pregnant after that. That was one of the happiest times in Kurt's life. He cared for her attentively and was making preparations to marry her. He once told Ethan that he wanted to leave the life of danger behind him because he wanted to be there for Marina and his child. Ethan agreed to let him go after one last mission. But fate was cruel to Kurt. He lost his life in the final mission. Before he died, he asked Ethan to take care of Marina in his stead. Kurt never found out that Marina never loved him. He didn't know that their one night of passion resulted from her being drunk. She wouldn't have slept with him otherwise. She even thought about having an abortion after she learned about her pregnancy. But then, she received news of Kurt's passing. Ethan went to her and pleaded for her to keep the baby. It was Kurt's only descendant. Marina's condition for keeping the baby was for Ethan to marry her. Marina wasn't arrogant in the beginning. She was uneasy and insecure. She didn't expect Ethan to agree to her condition. The only catch was she would have to wait for some time. It was because Olivia was pregnant then. Ethan had started to distance himself from her, but he didn't want to devastate her with a divorce during her pregnancy. Both of them had been looking forward to this baby. In the following days, Ethan began to pay less attention to Olivia and started to take care of Marina. He gave Marina whatever she wanted, even at Olivia's expense. Marina's greed grew as days went by. She even started to make hurting Olivia her personal goal. Ethan turned a blind eye to her actions repeatedly because of his guilt toward Kurt. Marina began to enjoy everything Ethan provided her with. Her demands became more outrageous. Ethan had tolerated her until this very moment, but Marina was still trying to hold Kurt's death against him. The child's origin doesn't matter. You promised you'd take care of me. Marina thought about something else. She said, I know Kurt's last words were not the only reason you married me. You have your considerations, too. You wanted the backing of my father and grandfather. Ethan turned to look at her abruptly. Marina lowered her voice and said, Others may not know, but I do. I know about your identity. You want to climb to the top of the ladder. But you have a competitor. You want to get more votes than him during the election. And the Carlton family has been around for over 100 years. Our connections are far greater than yours. Ethan didn't respond. His gaze grew colder. Marina went on with her monologue obstinately. Ethan, Olivia can't help you with anything. Marrying me is the best thing for you. Only I can help with the things you want to accomplish. Ethan closed his eyes and said, Don't ever tell anyone else what you said. You know you're dead if you expose my identity. I know what I'm doing. I just want you to be better to me, Marina said softly. Marina, I can give you a marriage, money, and status. But you're not worthy of my heart. Marina wanted to say something more, but Ethan opened his eyes and looked at her. If you weren't the woman Kurt loved, you would already be dead for what you've done to Olivia 1,000 times over. Be grateful for your position as Mrs. Miller, and stop dreaming of getting more than you deserve. Chapter 329. At the hospital, Chloe was out of danger after some emergency medical treatment. But she looked frail and pitiable. Chris held her hand that wasn't hooked to the IV drip and looked at her sorrowfully. Chloe's health had worsened immensely in a short amount of time. I'm sorry, Chloe. It's my fault Marina turned out like that. He didn't know the whole story, but he was sure Marina had done more horrible things than he imagined. Chloe wouldn't have been so angry otherwise. Chloe smiled weakly. It's okay, I'm fine. You don't have to blame Marina. She's just a kid. She's the mother of 2 children. She's not a child anymore. I'm aware of what kind of person my daughter is. She has always blamed you for what happened to her mother. Chloe grasped Chris' hand. I can understand how she feels. She lost her mother at such a young age. It's natural for her to hate me. I don't blame her. Sometimes, I wish you'd at least get angry at her. I'd feel better that way. I'll ask her to stay away from now. You have to take care of your body. I'll find the bone marrow you need. Chloe had heard from her doctor that a compatible bone marrow hadn't been found yet. She said with a self-deprecating smile, I have no regrets. You've been good to me. I'm very happy. Even if I die, Chris covered her mouth. Don't speak nonsense. Modern medicine is very advanced. You'll be fine. I only have one wish right now. I want to see Olivia and apologize to her in person. When she was being resuscitated, Chloe thought a lot about what happened in the past. Most of her thoughts were about Olivia, especially her childhood days. I've failed her too many times. Chris held back his tears, saying, "Don't worry, I'll find her." Ethan only left the office after night had fallen. Someone approached him from the shadows. Mr. Carlton. Ethan had expected Chris to show up sooner or later. It was inevitable. Chris looked fatigued, the usual vigor he had was gone. "Ethan, let's talk. Come this way, Mr. Carlton." They got in the car where there was less noise, and Ethan drove the car himself. Ethan was able to drive without a hitch. The bright street lamps illuminated the roads. "You must know why I'm here." "Yeah, I do." They didn't beat about the bush. Ethan parked the car near the beach as no one could track them here. There was the sound waves in the distance paired with the salty sea wind. Ethan handed Chris a cigarette, and he didn't refuse. Puffing out smoke, Chris said, "I know you've found Olivia." Ethan didn't deny it. "I knew I couldn't hide it from you." Ethan knew what he did at sea wasn't public knowledge, but Chris would come to know about what happened. "You're bold. You even alerted the Maritime Safety Administration. I heard you did something big not long before that under the guise of counterterrorism. But you were using your power for personal purposes. Even though your achievements in the military are phenomenal, you shouldn't have gone all out for a woman." The old guys up top were displeased. Ethan raised his head to look at Chris. "Would you have done it if you were me?" Chris looked into the distance and didn't deny it. "I would. I understand why you did it, so I hope you understand why I'm asking you to hand her over to me. You want her bone marrow. I know it's unfair to her. But I wouldn't ask this of her if I had any other options. I don't have a choice now. Chloe's condition is getting worse." Chapter 330. Chris saw that Ethan didn't respond, so he added, "Donating her bone marrow is different from donating her kidney. No harm will come to her body. I know she's still mad about what happened during the kidnapping. But they're mother and daughter, after all. She shouldn't hold a grudge against her mother. Let me meet with her. There are some things that I need to say to her in person. Mr. Carlton, I'm not holding her captive. Her phone is accessible. You're here because she isn't willing to meet with you, right?" Ethan exhaled some smoke with his head tilted upward. "Since she has already decided, I don't want to trouble her with more issues. She suffered significant psychological trauma in that kidnapping." The conversations between them had always been short and straight to the point. But Chris had no choice but to lay his pride down for Chloe's sake. "Ethan, I know you don't have feelings for Marina. You're marrying her because you want our family to back you, right? That's one of the reasons. All right, let's make a deal." Turning, Chris faced Ethan directly. "I can cancel this marriage on behalf of my family. I'll even guarantee to back you during the election. You just need to convince Olivia to donate her bone marrow to Chloe." Ethan's expression remained calm as he said, "You do know your daughter wants to marry me really badly, right? And here you are, making a deal with her future. In a way, you're just like her." They were both selfish and hopelessly love-struck. "I bet you'd try even more extreme measures if it was Olivia in the hospital." Chris sighed. "If you truly loved Marina, I'd never make this decision. I've been through the same thing. I know full well how scary a marriage without love can be. More than a few people have lost their lives in marriages like that. I married Marina's mom while I had amnesia. I only got my memories back after she got pregnant. I lived in agony every day. I kept telling myself to cherish what I had, but I couldn't help but miss Chloe. I tried my best to be a good husband and a good father. Everything was fine on the surface, but I felt like betraying Chloe even by touching Marina's mother. I used to think I only needed to fulfill my responsibilities in marriage, that it was fine even if I didn't love her. But no matter how well I treated or respected her, it didn't change the fact that she became frail as the days passed. Women are like flowers, and the love of a man is the nutrients they need. In the end, she died of depression. I don't want my daughter to end up like her mother. Even if you'll satisfy her material needs, your heart is with Olivia. You can't give her the love she needs. She'll eventually end up like her mother. Ethan, please help me out. We've known each other for so many years. No one knew better than Ethan how proud of a man Chris was. He didn't beg for mercy even when he was shot several times, had his legs broken, and was on the brink of death. A prideful man like that was looking at him pleadingly, almost at the point where he would get on his knees. Moreover, Chris was a man Ethan respected deeply. Ethan couldn't remain indifferent to his pleas. Even though Chris' offer enticed him, he knew how much despair Chloe had caused Olivia. He didn't want to sacrifice her for his benefit. He had already hurt her too many times. But Ethan couldn't find it in him to deny Chris either. He was caught between a rock and a hard place. Chris was about to fall on his knees when he saw Ethan hesitating. Ethan reacted quickly and caught him. You don't have to go so far, Mr. Carlton. Why won't you help me, Ethan? Do I need to get on my knees before you say yes? Or is there something else you want? Just tell me. I'll give you anything you want, even if it's my life.